Hello there, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, and welcome back to Team Fortress 2, and it is the new year. It is now officially 2015. No longer do we have to go through the monotonous and the tedious process of writing, July 2nd, 2014 on our calendars. No, we don't have to do any of that stuff. It is finally 2015. It's a fresh new year, a fresh new start. Feels a lot like the last one. Let's move on, and as you can see today, it's another Barn Blitz gameplay. I've played a lot of Barn Blitz lately, and I do apologize for not having much in the way of variety, but as you can see, I'm playing as the medic today, the team's physician, and I'm rocking the Vaccinator, which I haven't really used very much, and literally just used it because I felt random, and also because I'm sort of semi-pocketing Mage Bones, so I need to keep him alive. And you might not recognize Mage Bones right now, but he's of course the pyro I'm healing at the moment. He's called Mr. Bones' Wild Ride, because evidently enough the ride never ends, and this is why you have to keep him alive. Anyway, the reason this video exists is because I kinda just wanted to ramble for a while. I mean, this is a pretty long gameplay to accompany it, so if you don't want to listen to me rambling, then you could probably just watch what happens in the background. But I've sort of been considering about what TF2 is going to be like here in the future, like which direction it's specifically taking. But let's just start off by saying I've mentioned in my last video how I sort of had a part of me that just sort of wanted TF2 to die and just move on with it, so that way we could just move on to a new project. And in a way, it's kind of sad, but not as sad as like watching a relative go, and you know that they're suffering, but there's nothing you could do. You can't just, like, end their life, because that's just inhumane. But with TF2, there's a bit of a different side to it, because this game is not necessarily dying. As I said, part of me sort of still wishes to see it die, so that way, in the near future, we can move on to the next Source projects. Like, there's gonna be a new Source engine, as far as I know, possibly a Left 4 Dead 3. It's sort of rumors, sort of confirmed. It's a little bit of a sketchy future that's ahead of us, but I think I can say with certainty that a new Source engine is going to happen, because I think we are in due need of one. But anyway, the reason TF2 can't die, one, because the community is still here. I mean, you might see people leaving TF2 to go play Counter-Strike Global Offensive, which I'm personally not much of a fan of. I've never got into the Counter-Strike series or anything like that, and I don't really see the personal appeal, but I'm sure you could convince me otherwise. Just for the time being, I don't really think that game is of my particular interest or value. And, like, people are just getting really apocalyptic about everything, I feel. It's because of the updates that partially contribute to this. One other aspect would probably have to be the TF2 economy crashing, and if you're that involved in the TF2 economy and you're concerned about what the prices are going to be like on certain items, I know keys cost a lot of refined metal nowadays, and it used to be like half as much not too long ago, so it's a little bit of a drastic change going on, and people are saying that the economy is going to crash much like the real world economy, although whichever one people are concerned of more is beyond me. But I get the feeling some of the more irrational people will be worried about the TF2 economy crashing, because gotta get those Bills hats, man. You know, everyone's gotta have a Bills hat. And so we come to the point as well where we're talking about the TF2 updates, and I think the major updates I can list off the top of my head would be the Love and War update, which happened in summer, or getting around the beginning of summer, if I recall correctly. I think I heard word of mouth from the Wounded Stapler, who is a YouTuber who also makes videos about TF2. I believe I heard from him that around that time when the Love and War update was released, TF2's fanbase broke the records. Like, the community increased to levels of what it was like when the free-to-play update happened, which I find it pretty honestly hard to believe, but there you go. If you want to, like, confirm this, then you could just go watch the Wounded Stapler's video about it, or maybe look up a few TF2 statistics. Trust the Wounded Stapler on this, because if TF2 had managed to die like people thought it would back then we probably wouldn't really be here right now. People probably just would have forgotten about TF2. I mean, it's a likely possibility, but I can't stop playing this game. But for the most part, I find myself playing it more with friends than I do by myself. So yeah, is TF2 dying? Certainly not. The update's a little bit sketchy. I mean, then came the Halloween update, and that was just a reskin of Doomsday, which nobody really asked for to begin with. And then we got the end of the line update, which was a huge disappointment to a lot of fans because CP Snowplow and the new weapons were totally erased from existence. And then we had the Smithmas update, which did surprise us with new weapons, but I think people are sort of turning around and still thinking to themselves, hey, TF2 might be dying. Again, like, how do you see TF2 dying? The community is still alive and kicking. Valve is still patching and updating this game. What warrants a game to die, per se? I mean, I know that there is some controversy going around about what Valve is doing with TF2 lately. And as I said in my past video, I think TF2 is just sort of on the back burner, and it's not really the highest priority for them as of the current time. Because, as you can plainly tell, we haven't really got too much in the way of new content. We've gotten a few interesting things, like some of the new weapons, where we got the Demo Band's Iron Bomber, the Quickie Bomb Launcher, and the Panic Attack. I think the Iron Bomber is probably my favorite weapon out of all of those, and the other two I couldn't personally appreciate, and I could probably talk a bit about that later on in the Ramble. But for now, I guess people just wanted to see things more than this. We got some CTF reskins for Manpower mode, which was tacked on at the last second due to the fact that, presumably, because End of the Line was cancelled, this is why Manpower came to exist. And those maps were broken as hell once they were first released, and they probably are still broken as hell, because the game mode Manpower itself is not really balanced, and it's absolutely absurd. There's no point in it existing. So, what we can expect in the new year of 2015 for TF2, and this is not really a confirmation of what you can expect, but things that I want to see. So this is more like a question, is what do you want to see in TF2 for this new year? And what I personally want to see, I can probably just start rambling on right now, and we're actually just gonna cut back to when I talked about the new weapons being released, and I guess I can give my full opinion on that real quick, because it is somewhat relevant. And we've kind of been anticipating new weapons for a while now. People have always been craving new weapons, but the trouble is, when a lot of new weapons are suddenly added to the game, they sort of fall into the realm of obscurity about 3 days after the update has occurred. And needless to say, that's pretty much the same thing that's just happened. I see a few people using the Iron Bomber, and nobody is using the new Sticky Bomb Launcher, the Quickie Bomb Launcher, which, in all honesty, sounds like a really bad sex move. And then, of course, you have the Panic Attack, which I find is surprisingly a lot more noticeable by some new players, but as for its usefulness, I still have yet to honestly play with it. I tried it once so far, and I didn't really remember liking it that much. I think all I can really say in prediction of future gameplays where I do try to use it is that it requires a lot of practice and dedication to master. So, that all being aside, like I said, TF2 weapons tend to be forgotten when they're added nowadays. There isn't really anything that's been too improvisational for different classes these days. Nothing that's been added that's really unique. Like, I think the most unique thing I've seen added in 2014 was the base jumper, because it gives the soldier a much different option on how to gain mobility, access to different areas of the map, and just being able to save so much health at the same time without having to constantly rocket jump everywhere and look for health packs, because you're just able to gently float to the ground. Like, the base jumper is probably the most creative concept about it, and I could just talk about how much I love it in this entire gameplay, but no, that's not what this video is reserved for. So, now that we've sort of gotten that point across, how the Valve team just doesn't really seem to be adding anything that's really super new. It has a really super new gimmick, sort of like the Huntsman or the Gunslinger. I sort of want to hear what you guys want to expect. Like, what do you want to see in TF2 that's really drastically different from the things we've already seen? And this is, of course, in terms of weaponry. Me personally, as much as I don't really play Pyro that often, I think I would love to see some sort of pyro weapon that shoots ice instead of flames. And I have talked about this before with Mage and my friend Garbanzo as well, and we've kind of been discussing back and forth about how this sort of gimmick could work. Like, instead of having Afterburn, you would have some sort of form of Afterfreeze, where essentially if you lit a target on fire, or just with this weapon in general, not on fire, then they would start freezing, and it would sort of act like an Afterburn, but maybe a little bit different. For one thing, Compression Blast would not be able to put out the Afterfreeze, but instead, a puff or two of flamethrower ammo from your team could actually put the flames or the ice out. I keep saying flames, I keep mixing those things up for some odd reason. It totally summed up. Use this sort of afterfreeze flamethrower to light targets and cause them to freeze over time gradually. And the way to put out the freeze flame is to use fire instead of an air blast. And using an air blast would essentially be useless. And that's how I think something unique which should be added. And I'm not really sure what other attributes should be given to a weapon like that, because the concept itself is still questionable, and how it would apply to TF2, such as being able to put out the effect of freeze so easily with fire, it's a bit of a no-brainer, and there would probably be better options of what you could do and what you could use, but that's just my initial thoughts on it. As for anything else, I really would like to see some sort of assault rifle in TF2, and I know a lot of people would probably harp on me with this saying, oh, that's a terrible idea, like, TF2 isn't about assault rifles, it's about, like, this crazy composition. But what I'd thought about is a little bit of a workshop item that I've seen before, which I think I have a video in my favorites section somewhere, which is basically a weapon demonstration with custom stats, I might note, for a new SMG for the sniper, which looks sort of like a Tommy gun, some sort of old Chicago typewriter, and it's pretty much a super accurate Tommy gun that has like 100 ammo in its clip. It does less damage in general, but has a very high damage per second rate, and I just think it would be a really cool concept to see something like that in the game. But granted, I would rather see it replace something like the sniper rifle, so that way, instead of like having the sniper be a sniper, it would actually cause his role to be a little bit different. I mean, you could sort of argue that the huntsman has kind of done this in the past, where the huntsman, the kind of headshots you get are either luck or skill. It all depends on how you arc the arrow. But doing something that would totally change the class, sort of like with what happened to the Demo Man, where the Demo Knighting playstyle was added, I think that adding some sort of assault rifle to the sniper, or like a Chicago typewriter style weapon as his main weapon, would be pretty cool, because it would be sort of like playing a miniature heavy. You just have a lot of less health to work with. And I can't really say I've thought about it too much. It's just something that I've sort of dreamed about seeing in TF2 for a while now, just not something I've given much thought or how on earth it could be balanced. But I would like to know what you guys would think of that, or what your personal pick of very unique and differently styled weapons would be for Team Fortress 2. Something that at least wouldn't break the game. I'd imagine that some of my choices that I've listed so far would be a little bit crazy, a little bit something that would need a lot of balancing, but it's just, again, an idea that I would personally like to see in TF2, and maybe it could be added as a mod someday, but I don't know. I'm not really that much into modding myself, and I doubt I could get anyone to personally do that for me, because I would have to pay them with lots of monies, and I am going to need those monies for certain other sources of education and living by myself, so that way I can cook food and stuff like that, but that's just the unforgettable future. So, I'm rambling inside the ramble and going on a bit of an odd tangent right now. As for other new content, I think one thing I would definitely love to see would have to be new maps. Well, we haven't exactly gotten a new, full-fledged, totally unique map in a while. Everything we got in 2014 was like a reskin. I mean, you had the Carnival level for the Halloween updates, which did add a few interesting gimmicks with bumper cars, but nothing too special out of that. It's just bumper cars, and you get to play on Doomsday. Like, people actually try to win the objective on Doomsday, so that's saying a lot. And then, of course, you have manpower, which I still really dislike mentioning because I'm not exactly a huge fan of manpower and how it functions. So I want to see new maps. More specifically, I want to see something that the community has made, because people have been sort of complaining lately about how Valve is kind of disconnected from the TF2 community, and they're not really giving us what we want. But I think what the community needs to do is sort of make an outcry about what they want. And I think people need to get a bit more involved in the Steam Workshop too. Not too long ago, an option on the Steam Workshop was added to change the voting system, where essentially, if you want to see an item in TF2, then you give it the thumbs up. And I guess the more popular an item that is submitted gets more thumbs up, then that pretty much raises its chances of getting into the game. So it's not just exclusive to hats or the occasional weapon, but it's quite potentially also really handy for demonstrating how much you want to see a new map in the game. Of course, designing a new map isn't exactly all that easy, but I am still disappointed in the fact that Snowplow wasn't added in the end of the line update. As I said, I think the TF2 community just needs to sort of speak out and let Valve know that we still exist, and that we still want to see something totally new in this game. Another personal thing that I had in mind on the subject of maps is getting a new MVM map or two in the game, because it has been quite a while since the last MVM update, and I would certainly love to see some sort of new MVM map. I can't really say I could think of any sort of like upgrades or new features that could be added to Man vs. Machine. It's not something I've given really much thought because I've just been busy doing a lot of Two Cities lately. It hasn't really gotten too old for me, and it's kind of nice to be playing with friends from time to time, so that way it makes the process not only easier for you, but easier for them as well. But while I am still playing MVM, I still would love to see something that's a little bit different. What I like about the past updates for Man vs. Machine is that it added Manhattan and Rottenburg, which are two somewhat different styles to TF2. It's kind of a blend of the industrial style for Manhattan and also adds a nice city style, which sort of breaks the flow from all the deserts and the barns that you see in regular TF2 maps. And then, of course, you have Rottenburg, which is kind of a cross between Alpine and, again, City, which I do enjoy the city theme a lot, and seeing another city-themed map for TF2 would probably be really cool if you had something like that in just standard multiplayer, where you have team versus team. Even an arena map, I would certainly not pass up the opportunity to play something like that. So, of course, they do still have, like, the beta maps that you have to consider. You know, you have Cactus Canyon, you also have Asteroid, which eventually they're going to come out, but I'm not, kind of indifferent to them. Cactus Canyon is just an excuse to get another payload map into the game. Granted, I have nothing against that, but I still would love to see a bit of a different style towards that approach rather than just make it another desert-themed level. But then again, we haven't had too many totally, like, cactus-style deserts in TF2, so I guess, you know, seeing cacti would be kind of nice. You know, cacti is a new entity in TF2, you know, you gotta have that cacti. And Asteroid, I was never I was never a fan of Capture the Flag as a game mode to begin with. I don't like the way the map progresses. It's kind of fun to screw around on when you have nothing else to do and you're kind of tired of just playing the other maps that pre-exist, but I'm personally probably not going to play Asteroid that much, and it's only going to be reserved for silly times where I just want to play late night TF2 with friends, so that's all my thoughts. And I think that's all my thoughts that I really have to say in this Ramble video. I do hope you enjoyed the gameplay, and I hope you enjoyed listening on what I had to say. And if you have any sort of suggestions of new content, what you want to see in TF2, like new weapons, new maps, and just remember that the TF2 game itself is not going to die if the community stays strong. Considering how long it's been active, I don't think that TF2 is going to be dying for a long time. And the negative side of me still kind of wants it to die, but the positive side of me is sort of overtaking that opinion and still wanting this game to live on for quite a long time. So hopefully we can see some new stuff coming in the future. And that's going to wrap things up. So thank you guys very much for watching. Have a great day or evening. I guess I will see you in the next video. And happy 2015, everyone. Here's to another year of Team Fortress 2.